Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome back to Houselights, our director discussion show here on the Nerd Party Network. Today, we are entering the House of Meyer of the 1980s with his Star Trek debut, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan in 1982. I'm Darren Moser, and I am joined again by my friends, still Admiral Tristan Riddell and genetically engineered super podcaster, John Mills. Gentlemen, I hope you are thinking three-dimensionally as we talk about The Wrath of Khan. Yes,
I'm just happy. I'm happy with these identity assignments because it feels correct. It feels right. It really does.
It really does.
It really does. Admiral.
Man, this movie is so quotable. It's so great. And, I'm just picturing you now, Tristan, in the Enterprise, crippled from your hubris. And, whereas John is, unable to let it go and thus leads to his own demise in the nebula.
He tasks me. And I shall have him.
Well, yes.
Oh, my goodness. Wrath of Khan, the film that beautifully demonstrates how important it is to have a great villain in a great antagonist is always going to captivate so much more. And it is, I would argue, in some ways, Star Trek II, if you look at it in the arc of Roddenberry's own involvement in the franchise, Roddenberry lost sight of the fact that one of the things that people loved very much about the original series were the episodes where there was a strong antagonistic presence. People gravitate to that because it gives them something to work with. The intellectual stuff is fantastic, and
it's
you
a
can
framework.
have it. But you have to deliver it to people in such a way that it excites and thrills them. Otherwise, people are going to fall asleep, and no matter how much money your first movie makes, the studio is going to look at it and say, wow, okay, maybe we could have done better here.
Well, and what's so amazing about The Wrath of Khan is, you were saying, John, a captivating villain who only sees our hero, Kirk, on the screen. They're never in the same location. That's an amazing feat. Yes, they're obviously having dialogue and conversation, but that is rare for a movie to work like that, where the two leads are never in the same physical location.
Very true. Very, very true. Star Wars approaches that. Luke and Vader technically see each other, but they never interact in Star Wars.
That's true as well. Yeah. Well, I'm not saying it's the only case of this.
But the thing is, those are two standout cases because any studio head
that just
sitting
happened to
down,
have the word star in their title. But yes.
Even when this film was in development, they wanted to have a scene where there was a scene in an earlier draft where Khan used some sort of mind whip to torture Kirk in the Genesis cave or something. It was a very early draft. And that was one of the first things.
Sounds like Nemesis read that page when.
Sure does, doesn't it?
Very, very Ferengi-esque.
Yeah, but it was something that Khan controlled with his brain or something like that, and it was. If I recall,
genetically engineer, we don't know what he does.
If I recall my history of this movie correctly, it was in an earlier draft, and it was one of those things where they were pushing for it because the studio was like, "How can you have the villain and the hero never technically face each other?" When you really break it down, Montalbán and Shatner were never on set together.
They filmed at completely different times because, and I love this reasoning because it totally works. And like Darren, you're talking about, it's rare, but it absolutely works. It was because of scheduling conflicts. Ricardo Montalbán needed to film Fantasy Island, and they worked around his schedule. And that's why they're never on set.
And he's so good. He doesn't need to literally be feeding off of Shatner. He can carry his own weight of his half of the conversation.
Although I do remember, and I think this was a snippet of an interview back at the 25th anniversary of the Star Trek franchise or something like that, where they did interview Montalbán, and the person who was reading Shatner's lines that he had to react to he was like, I had to ask them to change the way they were delivering it because there's a way that Shatner delivers his lines that I wanted to key off of. And it was just somebody sitting off screen is like reading the line off to him. And he's like, no,
Khan,
I need something.
You devil,
here.
you missed. You have to come get me in the nebula. It's just like, how do you react to that? Like it's much harder. Yeah.
But even when you think about it, it's so, and that's the thing is everybody talks about Montalbán as Khan, but the performance that Meyer gets out of Shatner in this film, and Shatner's working against somebody just reading lines off to him too, and it works really well for him too. And this is the key. I think that Star Trek II is a prime example of, we've talked about this before, the difference of director.
It's not Kelvin example, so yeah,
but the difference a director makes in getting a performance out of an actor. A good director sits with the actor and says, I get what your impulse is, but this is what I need from you. I need you to give me this, and pulls it out. And this still stands as one of the best Shatner performances, in the entire franchise, period.
I mean, Star Trek V is close, but this one really, really takes the cake. Tristan,
you're not going to get any kind of agreement on this side of the podcast.
No. I do not like Star Trek V. But we're not talking about Star Trek V today. We're talking about Star Trek II, a couple Roman numerals earlier. So Tristan, again, 1982, I was a wee bit not born yet. So
I was -4.
Yeah. So the first time you watched this, was it a Star Trek marathon on like TNT or something? Did somebody like my uncle have the VHS box set that looked like the Enterprise when you put them all in order, and then they had to add like the sixth one and like an extra, so it kind of looked a little offside? How was your first viewing of this movie, or do you even recall it?
That was exactly it. Like it was the box set. It was the 5 box set that you had to add in number 6. And my parents are both Trekkies, and so from the womb, I was indoctrinated with Star Trek. And my dad loved the movies, the original series movies, way more than the original series. And my mom really loved Next Gen. And I was born in 86. Next Gen came out in 87. And my mom would tape Next Gen on VHS and send them to my uncle who was serving overseas. And she would sit me on her lap at 1 year of age to watch TNG. And so ever since then, I've been, obsessed with...
You've had no chance of not becoming a Trekkie. I had no chance. It was really impossible.
And now I'm 36 years old, and I'm talking about Wrath of Khan with you guys. And I haven't stopped. But yeah, so this is a long story, but I mean, to get to the answer, but my first memory, I have no idea if it's real. I have no idea if it's an accurate first memory, but my first recollection as a human being is sitting in my high chair watching the motion picture on TV. Again, no clue if it's real, but that's what's in my head. And from that box set, like my dad introduced me to Wrath of Khan at the right time, like I wasn't like 1, 2, or 3, but like I was older. I cannot remember exactly how old, but I was very young, and he would just like fast forward through the eel stuff and get through it after that. And people who have been longtime listeners of my podcasts and also this show know about how good my dad is with the fast forward button when I was a kid. But yeah, so like I've been indoctrinated. I've seen it 1,000 times. I cannot give you a specific memory, but it was early.
Yeah, for me, one of my earliest Trek memories was I was at my great grandmother's house, and she had a little TV upstairs, and it was, it had Star Trek on. And so, of course, the first episode I see was TNG's Conspiracy with the swallowing the bug and exploding. So, it scarred me for life, because like it's really scary if you're, under the age of 10. But yeah, for me, Wrath of Khan was most definitely sitting down with my uncle Dave, who was a big sci-fi fan. We're out whenever we're at a family gathering, we'll talk about, oh, what have you been watching lately? Or, oh, I just got turned on to The Expanse. Or, oh, do you think I'd enjoy this show? And just
I love that uncle.
Yep, already. So yeah, he was the one who owned that box set and eventually passed it on to me, when he was not needing it anymore. And I think if I recall correctly, when they added the sixth one, like you said, they just added a little more Starfield because there was no more Enterprise left to fit. But
yep,
it's a beautiful set, and yeah, and just watching this. So this is one of the few ones that I can trace to a family member seeing the movie with versus like a Blockbuster rental or something like that. But yeah, and I think, it probably would have also been a little bit of fast forwarding for the eel scene, as that's a little much for the youngins. But overall, this movie again is so enjoyable. Like every decade of your life, just watch it every 10 years at least, and you'll get something else out of it. From Kirk's talking about feeling
amateur.
Young. Well, I'm
filthy casual.
I'm not saying you should. I'm saying at a minimum, watch it every 10 years.
But that's the thing, right? Like I saw this probably on television was the first time I encountered it. The first Star Trek movie I saw in the theater was 5, actually, and it's better than people give it credit for. But whatever, that's a conversation for another time. But with 2, the TV experience had the Peter Preston scenes in it and the extended argument about Genesis. So when I finally saw it on video cassette, I was like, wait, what the hell happened to those scenes? And I remember the insistence for years was, oh, well, only the TV cut had the different blah, 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 whatever. But to your point, Darren, about like, once every 10 years, and Tristan, you saying, no, more frequently than that, I would say that Star Trek 2 is one of those movies, especially among the fans, where it does run the risk of that emotional impact being deadened over time because you watch it so much. It's just like all of the people who they wind up having to come up with an explanation for why Luke made the shot. It's like you've watched Star Wars so many times, you've forgotten that it's a like 1 in a billion shot. It's so special that it's supposed to blow your mind, but you've watched it 500 times in the last 12 months. And so it's just like, yeah, of course Luke's going to make the shot. It's like, no, you missed that. But with this, I think it's important to give enough time to breathe for the emotional weight of what's happening to really land. And I definitely think it plays way differently in the sense that when you're younger, it really goes into the ideas of mortality. So my first time really getting close to this movie is in my teen years. You become much more aware of death. Grandparents die, stuff like that. You become much more aware of you got limited time on this planet. And so Spock's death takes on a new meaning. But as you do get older, I think it's important to revisit this every so often, but not too often, because it packs one hell of an emotional punch. And I think that, again, the thing that's so important is you need to make this accessible to people who haven't watched the series. Even though this is a sequel to Space Seed, you don't need to see Space Seed. You don't need to see the motion picture. And one of the greatest strengths I think that there is about Star Trek II is it is the first reboot. We didn't have a name for reboot back then, but this basically is a reboot. Do you want to believe that Star Trek the Motion Picture happened before this? Yeah, sure, why not? Do you want to ignore Star Trek the Motion Picture? That's good too.
Do you want to watch the intro flying up to the Enterprise and be like, this angle looks really familiar, because they're reusing all and Regula 1, like, let me look upside down. Oh, look, that's the office complex. I mean, again, obviously budget reasons, but
keep in mind as well, the home video revolution hadn't happened. Enough time passes between these films. Right. That you have sort of a recollection of it, but they could still get away with recycling footage.
Or you became a new Trekkie between the first and the second movie, and you never saw the first one. And it's not like you could pop in and watch it.
And to me, those kind of things, like you said, Darren, is obviously budget constraints. But to me, it adds a continuity to it.
I was totally fine with reusing those shots. I didn't feel like, oh, I wish they had reshot an entirely new space dock scene. Like, no, you don't need that. Get to the action. Get to the story.
Yeah, like you have the space dock scene. You have the shot of the Kobayashi Maru, which is just the 3 Klingon battle cruisers from the motion picture coming at you. You got Regula 1. You got the spacesuits that the captain and
it's not the first
Chekhov
time I
wore.
noticed that. I never really put that together of like, oh, it's Kirk and Spock's spacesuit. Like,
yeah, it just that's the thing though, is that I feel like there's a healthy balance of making everything individualistic in the Federation, or specifically Starfleet, where everything's different and everything's new, and you're just like, this is a military organization. They're gonna reuse stuff for decades and decades and decades, and then there's the opposite end of the spectrum. Like there's certain things where, like, as fans, we expect every single ship we see to be completely different, where everything needs to be new. Like there needs to be new phaser designs, new costume designs, and everything.
The bridge
like that.
has to be different on every ship.
The bridge has to be different on every ship, and everything like that. But then there's the other extreme, where you have like stuff with New Trek, where you have an entire fleet of just one ship, and you're like, okay, I think we've overcorrected here. And I feel like,
what are we, Borg? Your individualism will be absorbed into our fleet.
But I feel like Wrath of Khan is a really happy medium, where like we have the same Connie, we have a Miranda class to differentiate from the Connie, we got everything else that I mentioned that's the same. Like it's really nice. And then from here on out, we have the maroon costumes for the rest of the movies.
Which that is one of the biggest and most important, I think, design changes is,
and the field jackets, and they look so good.
It no longer looks like 70s leisure suits. It's exactly what Star Wars does
it's
too, where
uniform.
it's like, hey, wait a minute, the 1970s aren't the pinnacle of fashion, and people won't be dressing like this in the future. It's okay to vary it up, and the outfits are more swashbuckling too. It looks very, operatic in a sense. And I think that that's so important. I think it's important too with you mentioned the field jackets. They're, speaking of the military thing, the fact that it has the patch showing the solar system that we're from, just like soldiers in the field have the flag of the country they're from. And it's like, oh, that's such a nice little touch, and they don't draw attention to it. But when you notice it, you're like, oh yeah, okay, that's something I understand what's going on here without somebody stopping and giving a gobbledygook explanation of, anything else.
And with this, being a podcast that focused on the director, Meyer, that was Meyer's idea to bring all this militaristic feeling back to the franchise. And I know that some people, that's a sensitive issue with some fans, where they're like, oh, it's not the military, they're explorers. And I'm like, they're both. Okay, come on. Like, we can be intelligent enough as fans to understand that they're both, because, who are they calling when the Borg invades? They're not calling, the
Mars Defense Perimeter. Go Mars Defense Perimeter.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, like the Mars Defense Perimeter.
Yeah, they're not calling an ambassador to sit down with the Borg and talk.
They're calling,
no, this is a problem.
They're calling Starfleet. Exactly. They're calling Starfleet. And I love every single reference that reminds me that Starfleet is based off of the Navy. I absolutely love that. And like, even when they call Savick Mr. Savick, like, that's what you call a lieutenant when there's someone who's above their rank. You call, like, if you're a captain, you call a lieutenant Mr. no matter what their gender is. And if you're below, you call ma'am or sir. And I just love that they added that kind of stuff in. And it's, with the costumes that we were talking about, with the uniforms, and just even the tone of the film, with it feeling like a very, submarine type feel with the Nebula fight. Like, that's Navy. That's the kind of fight that you would have, and it absolutely works for this movie. And we see that, and we'll talk about this next week, but you see that repeated in Undiscovered Country, where in Search for Spock and Voyage Home, and even Final Frontier, you don't really have a need for that kind of militaristic input in the stories that they're telling. But with Wrath of Khan and Undiscovered Country, you do. And
both by Meyer,
both by Meyer, and so it really fits. And you can that's the influence that I see from him right off the bat.
Yes.
No, I think those are all amazing points. And yeah, the uniforms, I keep thinking of, just how much play we get through all the movies from that flap. Like if it's open or it's not, or they're buttoned up, like it tells us something about the state of that character. If they're all buttoned up and sharp and standing on the bridge at attention, that everything's good and collected and together. If it's a little bit unflapped, it's like, oh, our hair is a little rustled. And if it's all the way up and there's blood on it, we've been, kicked to the curb and we got to come back. And it's part of their character, which I cannot see them doing that with either the original series or the motion picture kind of, uniforms. They didn't really lend themselves to that. But yeah, you get, like we were saying, a lot of reuse sets. I can see where a lot of things are going to eventually become next gen sets. Like there's a lot of kind of hexagonal corridors, and the main engineering set we know is going to be directly changed into that eventually. But I think it's also a really fun intro. Let's talk about the very beginning of this movie with the fake out death simulator. What did you think of my performance, Bones, where everybody dies, there's no snap involved. It's just, we actually get to see the fabled, Kobayashi Maru, and it doesn't go very well for Mr. Savick.
Yeah, but the Kobayashi Maru, that's the invention of this movie. Like
that's true.
There's no,
that's true. That was the first time we saw it.
There's no Kobayashi Maru before this, and it is a great way to introduce it. And again, there are so many different rumors. There are so many different retellings of the history. I mean, God, Wrath of Khan's been probably talked about in nerd circles as much as Star Wars ever has.
It's only been 41 years. I mean, it's been out a little while.
But the fake out in the beginning to kill the old crew in front of you, especially at that point, if you'd heard the rumors that Spock died, instantly puts you at ease, and you go, somebody
that
saw
must have been the
and
leak.
They didn't understand that was the leak.
There's no way he's going to die again. No way.
That's what I've always heard. That's the rumor that I always heard.
That's what I heard as well.
And so it instantly disarms the audience. And I think it's such a great reveal of Kirk himself, because let's say you're coming in cold, you've never seen Star Trek before this moment. Kirk's introduction, where he's in shadow,
Admiral
the light,
Kirk. Yeah.
But there's light behind, like in his appearance is almost angelic. He has this bright white light behind him, and you can't really see him, and it's like the voice of God speaking. You instantly get this feeling of, oh, wow, this guy's super important. I'd better pay attention to what he has to say. And the ease with which Meyer gets the character in that opening scene to slide into this fragile humanity. You can tell from that first shot forward, all of these people are looking up to him. All of these people are admiring him. He is raised up from everybody, but he feels he's moping. You can tell that he's not really...
We hear that he beat the no-win scenario. We don't get told how, but we've told immediately that he is the only one who beat it. We've been... And then, like you're saying, John, this movie has major themes that it delves into. It's not just a little star romp through the galaxy. It's like, no, like Kirk's getting older. He's feeling that age. He's, trying to, I mean, there's the scene with Bones where Bones is like, why are we treating your birthday like a funeral? And I mean, Star Trek will go into this many a time over the next several years. It's not only in this movie, but it fits. It does, especially on the bookend at the end where he's like, Spock was talking to me on my birthday, like asking me how I feel. And he's like, I feel young, it's like how Kirk got his groove back through the death of his friend, I guess. No, that's a worse title than Wrath of Khan, for sure.
But at the same time, Star Trek 2, let's be honest, Star Trek 2 is the real start of the movie franchise.
It is. Yeah.
It's the real start of it. And I think that it curses the rest of the franchise in a large way, the way Raiders of the Lost Ark did for every Indiana Jones movie that came afterward.
It's going to be,
no matter how much you love it, Raiders is a perfect film. Raiders is unassailable. It's amazing. And you're with it, and it's got every beat that you want, and you love the hero, you love the story, you love everything that it's doing. And there's no chance that anything will ever truly hit it. You might have an emotional attachment to a later one. You might really cheer for it. You might love it, but it'll never be Raiders. And I think that Star Trek II is so damn good that everybody's chasing the dragon after that. And every single one that comes out after this, well, this is the best villain since Khan. This is the best villain since Khan. Until you get to J.J. Abrams that says, this villain isn't Khan. I promise you, it's not Khan. Oh, wait, it's Khan.
Yeah, well...
And then you have Nemesis that tries to mirror, Wrath of Khan and everything like that. It's so interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up because this is a soft reboot. This is the real beginning of the movie franchise. And it's so interesting to me because there's so many times when Gene Roddenberry comes up in conversation and parts of the fandom have elevated him and put him on a pedestal of honestly almost godlike status. Like if you're obsessed with Star Trek,
he's the great bird of the galaxy.
Yeah, and if you have an unhealthy relationship with Star Trek, as I've seen, and many of us have seen, you put him to almost a religious icon. And this movie, like he was like with the failure that was the motion picture and going over budget and going past time, all of that was contributed to Roddenberry. And then when Wrath of 2 came about, they said, okay, Gene, you can be a producer on this film, but you need to be with this guy who was an associate producer on the motion picture so he can kind of reel you in. And Roddenberry said, nope, BS, I'm not going to do it. You give me creative control or nothing. And they said, okay, nothing. And then we get Harve Bennett. And he knocks it out of the park, along with, Meyer, of course. And then you also look at TNG, look at season 3, look at season 4 onward compared to first 2 seasons. Like first 2 seasons was heavy Roddenberry involvement. Season 3 was less for obvious reasons. And I'm not saying that this man didn't inspire something great. I'm not saying this guy wasn't a great storyteller, but he couldn't read the room. And he couldn't change with the times. And I feel like Bennett and Meyer knew what was needed in 82. And that's what we got. And again, like, don't write me letters. Don't send me tweets. But I think this is the change that was needed for the franchise. This was the exact change that we needed when we needed it. And Bennett and Meyer is proof of that.
Yes. And it is because so many people get so strung up on the fact that, oh no, this director's coming in, he doesn't know the franchise, he hasn't done his research, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Meyer came in cold here, and he had never watched Star Trek before, and he comes in and he's like, all right, I'll do some homework and I'll find out what I need to do to make these people more human and relatable.
Quoted saying that he purposely is like, I'm going to disrespect the source material, not in a negative way, but in a, you got to approach it as a normal person and being able to see through. Because think about it, then you're making a movie for the masses. You're making a movie for people who don't know every episode of Star Trek or went to the conventions. I mean, it's the same thing as kind of happened a lot in the Star Wars community, where not through the passing of the creator, but eventually through the sale of the property. And, it's been a decade since 2012 when it was sold to Disney. And there's some people who are like, everything Disney is terrible. And then you list a couple things and like, well, except for that, and that. But, but honestly, I just look at it as more Star Wars. It's a great time to be a Star Wars fan right now. It's a great time to be a Star Trek fan. We're getting more Star Trek right now. And it doesn't mean everything is going to be amazing or be your cup of tea, but we've had some amazing animated shows, some amazing reboot shows, and Picard's right around the corner. There's a lot of amazing things.
Well, to speak to that, there's a... And this is in no way being dismissive of anybody or gatekeeping or whatever you want to say, right? It is, you bring up Star Wars. I've talked about my friend Joey, and I freely have even said to him, I said, he's not a Star Wars fan. He's a fan of some movies that came out in the 80s that were Star Wars movies. But he's not a Star Wars fan because everything that came out since then, it sucks. It's terrible. This is no good. The prequels, the sequels, the this, the that, there's nothing that he likes about it. And that's the thing, is that's okay. That's what I think people need to come to terms with, is it's okay to let it go and say, no, you know what? I just liked Star Trek 2 and maybe Star Trek 6 or 4. I just like 2, 4, and 6. I'm not a Star Trek fan. I just like 2, 4, and 6. That's okay. That's fine. And it's not like anybody needs my permission or I'm being dismissive or anything like that. It's just, I think that people need to be more honest with themselves about what it is they're a fan of. And it's, even if you're not a fan of a franchise, there can be things in that, like, you don't have to be a Marvel fan to necessarily think Winter Soldier is a great and poignant action film. That's okay. You could hate everything else Marvel has done. And but if you see a Marvel movie and then every single Marvel movie that comes out after that, you're like, oh, this is garbage. This is no good. Well, maybe you're not a Marvel fan anymore. Maybe just let that one go.
And there's the ability to disengage whether or not someone else likes something with a reflection on your own taste. It's okay. Not everybody has to agree with you. Not everyone has to enjoy the same things you do. If you enjoy, it's common sense what we're saying, people, but it's not, it's in the internet. It's easy to
think, Darren. You'd think.
Yeah, I know. You'd think,
but that in and of itself is interesting, because I think that speaks to what Meyer brings and what Meyer accomplishes with this. Is because
bring it back to Meyer, John. Bring it back.
But think about the fact that this is a guy who never watched Star Trek before and has created something so beloved that even Star Trek fans who don't like the new Star Trek love this.
Right.
Star Trek fans who do love the new Star Trek love this. People like. This is one of those things where, much like, maybe I'll get letters myself for this one, but much like Tron Legacy, right. It's a work that transcends the franchise. It's just a good film on its own merit. And I think that's what franchises miss, is they're not trying to make good films on their own merit. Meyer simply is trying to make a movie that speaks to a theme, and it happens to be Star Trek. That is a different thing than trying to make a Star Trek movie. And I think that's why this one works.
Well, and franchises as themselves have changed and evolved. That changed with the sequels of like Star Wars. That changed. Like franchises used to be, I think of like Police Academy. It's literally pretty much the same movie over and over and over.
Yes.
And it's a, let's get the gang back together. We like this gang. Let's get them back together. And then we start to put them in more and more wacky situations, because it's like, why would these people still be like, it starts to break down. Like, that's what sequels and franchises were, not what they are now, where they're cinematic universes and interwoven story plots. And I think you nailed it, John, when you said Wrath of Khan is a good movie that happens to be a Star Trek movie. Like, it's not, one last thing on this thread, I hear people saying, oh, like if we get another movie, like that Jonathan Frakes has to direct it. And I'm like, well, no, like, yes, Jonathan Frakes has directed some good Star Trek movies, but he's by no means the only person that is capable of directing a good Star Trek movie. Like, it's, that's crazy.
To speak on one of your points, Darren, like, my wife is not a Star Trek fan. Like, she'll watch some Star Trek with me just because she loves me.
Right.
But she'll watch Wrath of Khan, because I remember I showed her Wrath of Khan specifically. I said, I was like, we're going to sit down, we're going to watch Wrath of Khan. I'm not going to show you the motion picture because I love you, but we're going to watch Wrath of Khan. And when it finished, she's like, that's a good movie. Like, she's never seen a single episode of the original series. She kind of likes TNG. She doesn't like anything else. And she watched Wrath of Khan. She's like, that is good storytelling. That is something impactful. That's enjoyable. I'll watch that with you again.
And I envy you, because when I tried to show Star Trek 2 to my bride, who was bride to be at that point, she fell asleep and she's refused to ever watch it again.
Oh.
So that's fine. whatever, it's basis for divorce in the future, but we'll see about
okay,
that.
It's smarter than me.
I kid.
For some reason, I don't know why, young Darren chose Star Trek V to be the one to introduce my wife to. I don't know.
Listen, you keep coming back and stomping on Star Trek V. You're gonna make me angry here.
I'm not gonna. I have, having watched Star Trek V a couple of times, like. I will say I do not agree that it is like the worst. People who say like the worst thing ever, it is not. Does it have like some parts that are really rough and Shatner is super in love with himself? Yes. Like that is definitely a part of it. But, again, I could list many things that I enjoy about Star Trek V, but I won't right now because we're talking about Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
We are talking about Star Trek II, where a first-time franchise director comes in, delivers this sequel, and delivers a movie that is in the top 10 for highest grossing films of 1982, which is a year that featured
what else? What else, John?
E.T. the Extraterrestrial,
Ooh,
Tootsie, An Officer and a Gentleman, Rocky III, Porky's, which is a lot less offensive than people think.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's a lot less offensive than people think. Directed by the same guy that did Christmas Story, so go figure. 48 Hours, which is regarded as for a long time was regarded as a comic masterpiece. Poltergeist, Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, which I think has sort of been forgotten to the sands of time, and the film adaptation of Annie. Like, that's pretty damn impressive. That in comes this unknown
Star
director,
Trek
basically, and he takes Star Trek and he turns it into what it becomes, which is a franchise that Paramount's like, okay, we can make money and make people happy at the same time. That's important. It didn't make as much money as E.T., but then again, nothing
nobody
did for a
made
very
as
long
much
time.
money as E.T. Yeah. All right. Well, so moving along in the story, we get Chekhov. Chekhov is doing something. I love how we introduce him, and he's on the Reliant. We introduce Khan. You get the amazing slow reveal and this is Ceti Alpha V, the eel scene. So we move on to kind of what's going on now for our intrepid heroes. And it's kind of nice that they're not all in the same place, that they're not all on the Enterprise still. Like things have happened. And I think Lieutenant Chekhov's actually the first officer, right, of the Reliant. He's fairly up there, if I recall.
Science officer, isn't he? Because it's Mr. Kyle is or is Mr. Kyle the science officer?
He's not first officer then, but he's up from ensign. He's not ensign.
Yeah,
Chekhov
anymore. He's senior
Yeah.
staff, but I don't think he was first XO.
Okay, I'd have to
I'm
watch
pretty sure
it
it
again.
was Mr. Kyle.
I guess. Twist my arm. But Tristan, what did you think of the reveal of the villain? We have to again reintroduce him for the first time, really, because you can't assume that people watch Space Seed, but you also want to reference it a little bit so people who did watch Space Seed are like, oh, his wife died. We know that is the Enterprise crew member that defected with him when they left. That's kind of a cool tie-in and so forth.
It was such a surprise to me that Khan was in The Wrath of Khan. I mean, I was blown away.
Okay, true.
When I popped in the VHS.
They didn't really bury the lead on that one. That's a good point.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about the reveal. When you're like, oh, I wonder if Khan's going to be in this scene. Nope. I wonder if Khan's going to be in this scene. Nope. Oh, Khan's in this scene. No, it's from an aesthetic point of view, from an objective point of view, I think it was done really well. The music, the freak out that Chekhov had. I think that's what really sells it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chekhov was freaking out.
He's like, I can't even explain how screwed we are. Yeah, Let's get out of here.
He's like, we're done. We are effed. We gotta get out. I'm not gonna explain this to you. Just go. Yeah. That was great. And I think if you don't have that, it doesn't sell it. Because if you have the dramatic, taking off of the helmet, the weird fringe thing that he takes off of his mouth, it's nice. But you need that panic from Chekhov to really sell it. And so I think from that
you're totally
point of view,
right. Because without Chekhov's panic, it's like, I am the villain. And you're like, great. I don't, and who are you? It's like, and why should I care? It's in the universe, you need to establish either showing them doing evil things or show our characters reacting to them in a way that tells us this is a bad person.
But I think that Chekhov's freakout works specifically as well as it does because Montalbán plays it very low key when he reveals himself.
He does.
It's not a behold. He's
in control of the situation from get go.
He's so dead calm that it's such a counterpoint to Chekhov's panic that it's like, and then look, Meyer's also the writer, and when you have lines like "You are in a position to demand nothing," I, on the other hand, am in a position to grant nothing. Khan's just this,
so good.
He's chill. He's like, whatever.
And like the whole when he's talking to the captain, he's like, did he never tell you the tale?
Yeah. Did you not abuse your captain? It's like, it's so backhanded. And he's just, his little barbs, everything he says is,
But as he builds in that scene too, where you see Khan sort of reawaken in this moment when he realizes, oh, wait a minute. I've just been handed the opportunity I thought would never show up to get revenge.
Admiral.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
Yeah. Or when he's like, you didn't expect to find us here. And you're like, and the thing is, he figures out exactly what's going on, and he's been told nothing at all.
Yeah.
Then he gets told everything, but yeah.
That always kind of bothered me, even as a young person. Mm-hmm. And I know it's a movie, and we all just need to calm down. But like when he says, like when he screams, "This is Ceti Alpha V," I'm like, okay, so you guys entered the system and just didn't know that a planet exploded.
Yes.
Like there was no remnants.
I haven't done it yet. I was gonna start drawing out orbits and being like, if which planet blew up, and then how did the order change? Because I had to think. I haven't actually thought about it, but does it make sense, John?
No debris, no asteroid field, no remnants, and all of a sudden you're entering a system where the star is the same, but there's just not as many planets orbiting the sun.
You're just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's got to be 5.
Nope. I will straight up come in and say that. You can sit there and you can say, oh, you're explaining away, but it is the experience of anybody that's worked on a project that people get fixated on things and they go, we're going to this place. We're looking at this thing. Therefore, you don't really pay attention to the peripheral stuff. That's my goal right there. I'm going to go. You're not necessarily doing, and even if somebody notices, it's Ceti Alpha 6. At this point, it's probably it's at the other side or something like that because you're so fixated on it. The better question is why on God's green earth would Starfleet have not wiped this off of the maps and not even given it as an opportunity for somebody to go and accidentally, like, why would you even consider Ceti Alpha V if Khan is on Ceti Alpha 6?
Yeah.
Like, that's the better question is why would you send anybody there? But then you can sort of headcanon it in as it's a bureaucratic screw up. Somebody's like, okay, this is a top secret thing. We can't ignore that the system is there, but we can cover up what happened because we don't want anybody going there. And so it's just, they erase the history book sort of thing. And so it's a bureaucratic flub.
So tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm doing some orbital dynamics calculations right here. So Khan was put on Ceti Alpha V, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Ceti Alpha 6 is what blows up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Then that doesn't make any sense. Because if you're naming the planets based on how far out from the sun they are, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you put them on number 5. Number 6 blows up. Number 5 is still number 5. It doesn't change because you blew up a higher number. And now if number 4 blew up, then yes. That bugs me.
But the thing is, you can sit there and be like, oh, well, maybe their orbits crossed, like Pluto and Neptune.
That's true.
Something like that. And so there was mixed up, because the thing is, it's again, I think it's a function of like watching it so many. The first time I watched it didn't even occur to me the first dozen times I watched it. And it's only after you watch it a certain amount where you go, hey, yeah, wait a minute. And that's because it's very clearly communicated that I care about this. I care about what's going on.
Oh yeah,
so long as I'm invested in that, because you want to kick the can further down the road, sort of thing. There are so many different things about it's like oh, well, do you want to keep Genesis out of their hands? Okay, take the torpedo apart. Destroy your work. I know that it sucks, but guess what? Yeah,
or you have the firing mechanism and the torpedo. Put them on separate torpedoes and fire them in opposite directions or something.
Or take apart the launching mechanism and then like beam the pieces elsewhere, sort of thing. Or like take it apart and bury them inside the Genesis cave, so you have to go looking for them or something. Like, but again, that's a function of everything. The one thing I don't like about this director's cut is the snippet. I always loved the way in the theatrical cut that it played, because I love this character. I don't know his name, but when they're having the argument on Regula about, I always knew Starfleet was going to screw us over.
Right.
I can't subscribe to your. They're arguing, and it's like, what are we going to? And then there's one guy's like, so what? They're on the way, right? Like,
right. Reliant is coming.
Yeah, Reliant is on the way.
Like, stop arguing. Let's figure out what we're going to do.
It used to cut there. And so there was a remaining amount of mystery when people go to Regula and they're missing. The key people are missing. Whereas in this version of it, she tells people to start packing things. And they say, where are we going? Well, that's for us to know and Reliant to find out. Well, you've now told me that they left somewhere. And so it sort of removes a bit of that tension about, did they kill everybody and they just didn't find all of the bodies and they go down there, sort of thing. I just prefer that in the theatrical cut where he says Reliant is on its way and then it cuts out. I also do wish that in this version of it, they removed the line that used to be there when they got back on the Enterprise from Regula, and nothing's operational below sea deck, and they're climbing the through the hatch. There was originally an ADR line where you hear Kirk say, "That young man is my son," and Spock says, "Fascinating." And in this, you just see them climb up, and there's no dialogue over it. I like the fact that this would have been something Kirk would have told his best friend in a heartbeat. That's my son. Oh, wow. That's cool. Like it made sense. So those are the two little adjustments
Vulcan
here.
fist bump.
Yeah, basically. But those are because there is a difference, between this director's cut, the director's edition, which came out previous to this, and then the theatrical cut. And it's like, it's one of those things where I just wish those two bits were just a little bit different.
So moving on, we have Khan as the villain. The Enterprise gets ambushed. Again, an amazing, it's our heroes kind of letting their guard down, but it's also the villain being very smart and like, we are one big happy fleet, and why would we raise our shields? And the Enterprise just gets hammered hard, and we see actual damage on, because it's a movie. We have a budget to show damage on the ship. It's not just described, so that part, just, it's cool seeing the villain get the upper hand for a little bit, and we know and then it kind of puts our heroes in on their back foot. We end up getting the beaming down, onto Regula, into the cave eventually, and then we have the clever hours. If hours were like days, almost a little too on the nose there, Mr. Spock. But what are your thoughts, Tristan, on this next sequence of the film?
Yeah, that always bugged me a little bit when, because I hate it when because Star Trek does this a lot. Like, it's almost become tradition for Star Trek to wink when they're trying to be clever with their secret code. Like with the hours become like days, wink, wink. Or like, there were so many times in TNG when they would do that, where they're just like, we really want the audience to know that we know that we're doing something secretive. But it's one of those things that, you can get over. It's like what John was talking about. It's one of those nitpicks that really, really digs at you about the fifth watch. And, I love I love this sequence. I think it kills the momentum a little bit. Like when we stop off at Genesis, like at the Genesis cave, I feel like there's important stuff. There's really important stuff that happens there. Like Kirk meeting David, and them seeing the Genesis cave and really having
turning and fighting the eel.
Yeah,
inside
absolutely.
His mind.
All of that is really important stuff. But for some reason, when we get down, like when they first beam down, it just kind of feels like ooh, a little sluggish. And then we finally get to Chekhov's scene. I feel like, okay, let's move this along a little bit. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying that like they did anything wrong, but that's what I felt.
I don't disagree that it slows down in that moment, but I think it's one of those things where, especially on your first watch, it's a reset moment for the audience. You've just had this thrilling build and the close. You need to give the audience a second to breathe.
You just had a big space battle.
And so instead of doing a quick gear shift, you give them that beat. Okay, there's something else that's happening. There's something else we have to figure out. And you let them wander around so that you allow the suspense to breathe and recharge a little bit, so that when you go, because once it kicks off again, it's like, oh my gosh, it's kicked off and it never stops after that again. So I would argue that it's necessary.
Well, and even though we have like the debrief scene where Kirk like literally plays the tell the audience what Genesis is video cassette, like I like how Genesis is a mystery throughout the entire movie. Like we're not completely told how it's going to work and how it's going to play out, and it is slowly revealed to us and to the villain at the same time. So it never loses its sense of awe because we're never 100% wrapped around what it's going to give us. And now I'm trying to recall, so at this time, Kirk knows he has a son by Carol, right? Like, is that a surprise or okay?
No,
it's just they're just not. They just don't see each other very often.
No, he says, "I did what you asked. I stayed away."
That's right.
So he knows he has a son. He's never met him though, and that's the moment that he has.
David knows he's his father. Again, he just hasn't interacted him with very much.
Nope, he does not know.
But he mentions that he says that Boy Scout you ran around with.
Yep, but he does not know he's his dad. That's why that's so important that they have the conversation later. They flat out say Carol's never told David. And that's why it's such a big moment when David comes to see him later, and he says,
he's proud of
just
you
words. He says, and I'm very proud to be your son. Like it's oh wow, like, and they get that awkward hug sort of thing. But that's no, David doesn't know that Kirk is his dad, but Kirk knows that David is his son, but he's never met him. And that's why it's great.
I promise I've watched the movie more than once, but that part was a little harder to remember how that fit together.
He Kirk foos David, and then when Carol makes it clear that that's David, he has that moment where his fist is ball. He looks down and he's like, oh, I just hit my own son.
Yeah. Oops.
That kind of sucks. Yeah. I think what's interesting is I think that the maturing of Kirk and the forwarding of the story is something that was missed by some. Like you look at some of the reviews of the time, I think that Pauline Kael called it big dumb fun or something like that, and it's one of those things where I think that the only thing that's ever hampered people truly picking up on what the film is trying to say with relation to Kirk and David and Carol and all of that stuff is those action sequences are so good and they're so well done that people remember them. They're very memorable sequences, and I think they at times can overshadow the emotional beats that happen throughout the film. And that's why I think it's important to watch it, only every so often, so that you always get that sort of like fresh first viewing again. But you've seen it before, so you still have you're going into it with a little bit different perspective.
All right. Well, as we're rounding third towards our ratings, I did want to take a moment to speak on the music. This is James Horner's, first Star Trek film, and I mean, you want to talk about memorable. I would say it's right up there with soundtracks I can listen to and practically have the movie playing in my head and know roughly what's happening on screen, even if I'm not actually watching something. It's that, just the connection to the action, the connection to the beats. I know, that little fanfare played. That means the Enterprise just came into view and it's heading off that way, or it's chasing down the Reliant. What are your guys' favorite parts of the music in this film? Tristan.
One thing that I really love about this is the backstory as to how Horner was hired, or why he was hired, is because he was 28, young and cheap, and then he delivers this.
Yeah.
And which is absolutely insane. And because Goldsmith did the motion picture, right? And he was too expensive. They were looking for ways to cut costs, and this was one of them. And then, this is, I think I own this one on vinyl, and this is one of those things where I just wanted to own. I don't even really listen to it that much. I just wanted to own because it had the Mutara Nebula swirl design from the Mondo collection, and it was just so beautiful. It was like beautiful score, beautiful vinyl, and I think probably the key moment for me which is a lot of it in a lot of people's brains, is when the Reliant is coming straight at the screen and it's all kind of staticky, and then all of a sudden it kicks into gear. And I always loved, there was
the base of hard to starboard.
What's it called? Who are the people who are famous for making prequel reviews? Like Red something.
Oh, Red Letter Media.
Red Letter Media. Yeah, they did a review. They did
they're big Star Trek fans.
Yeah, they did the same kind of treatment with Star Trek 09, and they were really generous to R9. They're just like, I really like it, because of this and because of that. And they're like, a lot of people were making fun of that the view screen was just glass, and they're like, I don't know, I feel like this could have come in handy. I don't know, maybe here. And then they cut in that scene with the Reliant coming at you with the huge music.
I mean, it's how many times have we said it? When sensors are down, somebody go look out a window and tell if the nebula's still there. Is it on our left or our right? Yeah.
Horner delivers such a strong score that he borrows liberally from himself in 1986 for Aliens, and that's the unfortunate thing is, because Star Trek II is so familiar to me, now when I watch Aliens at certain cues, I'm like, where's Khan? Where's Khan? What's going on?
And didn't that disqualify him for winning the Oscar for Aliens, right?
It was too similar?
Yeah.
I don't recall that much.
Yeah, they have I've never quite worked out how the music rules work, or how you determine what percentage of the score is original versus reused or something like that. So, okay, whatever.
It's like talking to John Williams being like, you can't use French horns. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm John Williams. I'm going to use French horns in just about everything.
Yeah,
it's like cutting out instruments from the band. It's not going to work.
But Horner just knocks it out of the park. It's ridiculous how great this score plays. Now,
and not just the action, the tender moments. I mean, so honestly, I can't remember the most recent time before now that I watched this, but I did watch Wrath of Khan right after Leonard Nimoy passed, which wasn't that long ago. And that shot where, McCoy is like, you better get down here, Jim. And he looks at the science center and he's not there. And that kind of building music as Kirk is trying to rush down, it's giving me chills now, just that sweeping, he's already dead. It's so good. And that's not the big climactic battle, but it's the climactic moment for Kirk, really.
For me, my favorite piece of music in it, most likely, is the music that plays when Kirk goes to talk to Spock about taking command of the ship and everything. It's like, I would not presume to debate you. That is wise. It's, again, getting back to Meyer. Meyer gets how comedy needs to work in Star Trek. And every movie after this it figures out, okay, these are this is what we have to build off of with the comic beats. And sometimes they go too far, but they basically understand where the comedy comes from. And but that music that plays when it's just this tender moment, and it's shot so beautifully so that you can see the reflection of Kirk behind Spock. So you have them both in frame without, it's such a clever way to do that shot. And the music is so touching. Like if you took the dialogue out and you just watched it with the music, you would understand that this is, a friendship that's rooted in such a deep love and respect between these two people. And that's what that music hits on. I love it. I love that cue so much.
It's interesting that Darren, you bring up that moment of the build, and John, you talk about about like how to use humor in Star Trek and everything like that. There's one moment, like, when Spock is dying, in the script it had McCoy saying, "He's dead, Jim."
Ooh.
And I think it was DeForest who said, like, this is gonna get laughs and this is not gonna work. And so they had Scotty say, "He's dead already." And that is such a better
is way
moment.
more powerful. Yeah. It's
and just
not
like
that
just the way
you
that
can't
Doohan,
save him.
Yeah, just the way that Doohan delivers the line. He's holding Shatner, and he's just the look on his face and like the gravel in his voice. It was. I wouldn't even say it's compassionate. It's like, listen. He's grabbing him by the ears and saying, "Listen."
He doesn't want to lose two friends today.
Dead. Yeah, exactly. Look at this. Look at this.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Yeah. Goosebumps right there. I see him.
Look at this. Literal goosebumps.
Come on, listeners, look at it.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Look, stare intently at whatever device you're listening to this on, and imagine there are
with
goosebumps
your
on
ears, folks, because you could hear my hair standing up on my arms.
Yeah, no, that line definitely way better than "he's dead." Oh, that would not be the right place for that joke. And again, it's what he's not saying, or what he is saying, and the way he's saying it. It's not like, how can we save Spock? It's like, no, it's too late.
But again, that's a smart director who has his script, and he doesn't say, "No, that's the line and you're going to say it." He hears the actor say to him, I don't think you understand what's happening right here. You can't do this. And he listens
DeForest,
to
do you
the
really
actor.
know what Bones would say here? It's not like you've played the character your entire life. Like,
but the thing is, and we'll hit on this in 6, there is a moment where he and Shatner disagreed about something. And so, there was a different way of dealing with that using editing that Meyer did to get around. He was like, "All right, fine, Bill, we'll shoot it your way." And then he leads over to the editor. He's like, "Okay, and this is how we're going to cut it." And it's like, a smart director knows who he's working with, when to listen, and let his actors and actresses tell him, "Listen, you got to trust my impulse on this, and you got to change this." A good director does that 100% of the time.
Well, and again, I mean, we're watching a finished product, and with the music and what has come right before and right after, all in context. When you're shooting, you don't hear any of this music. It's a loud, noisy soundstage. Fans are probably running to cool it off because the lights are so hot. And then the director's like, "Okay, and speed and action." And all you're hearing is, holding him back, and, "No, you fled the whole compartment. He's dead already." That's the power of acting, because you have to act like you're in the final scene in the production of the moment. And they do. I mean, that's what actors do.
Yep.
All right. Well, prefix code's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. We're not going to talk about how limiting the combinations are based on that combination lock, but
why are we bothering? We all know.
Okay. Well,
right?
just for I have to put something in the logbook. Okay. I got to go down to my quarters where the captain's wheel is. It's very nautical. And so, John, are we all in agreement? What are we giving Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan?
How could you give it less than a 5? I honestly don't. it's one of those things where it's so easy for somebody to be like, oh, well, yeah, you're a fan. Of course you love it. This is legitimately, like I was saying, this transcends its franchise. This is just a great film. And this is a great film put together by a very talented director who I've seen other work of his. I don't know what sort of magic sauce occurs. Maybe he needs to be swimming upstream against what people want it to be or what Roddenberry wants it to be. But maybe it's that, that desire to push back and redefine things just brings out the best in Meyer. And yeah, there's no question. This is a 5, solid 5, 100%. And it doesn't matter what cut. Any cut of this is a 5, period. That's it.
And that's true. We should have specified at the beginning. We were watching is it just the official director's cut is the most recent one?
Now it's the director's cut. It was the director's edition previously. And then before that was a theatrical cut. So yeah, when they released it on 4K, he was able to go back in and do some of those additional little changes that he wanted to.
All right, Tristan, what is your prefix code for The Wrath of Khan?
I really wanted to give this something other than 5. Not just to be difficult, and I'll explain those reasonings next week. But the execution, how this was delivered, you got to look at this movie in context of when it was made, how it was made, who was involved, the experience you felt when you first saw it, and the impact that it has on the franchise. I mean, like that alone, you have to respect it. Like there's a lot of movies that you look at the pantheon of filmmaking, and like how we've been making movies for over a century, and well over a century now, and there's movies that I don't particularly enjoy that much, but I have to give a 5 because of the influence and the just utter craft of filmmaking. And I'm not saying that this is one of those cases. I'm saying that if you didn't like this film but yet put all of those things into consideration, you'd have to give it a 5. And so yes, I'm giving this film a 5 because of all of those reasons, regardless of how I feel. And even though I think it's a great movie, I love it. It's fantastic. But that's my reasoning. That's my overall reasoning as to why this is a 5-star film. Now, one thing I do want to mention before we move on, and I want to plug because I was not paid to say this, but I really want to give love to John Tenuto, who is a sociology. I can't even say it right. Sociology professor, and he's been a sociology professor for decades. And he and his wife Maria Tenuto literally wrote the book on the making of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, and it's coming out this September. And so everybody should go to Amazon and pre-order it.
I want to buy that.
Oh, yeah, I'm already signed up. Oh, yeah. Yes.
See,
can't wait for this one.
I've had the pleasure of meeting him because he lives not that far from me. And before I moved to where I am now, like we lived like in the same town. And he teaches or at least he used to. I don't know if he does now, but like I got to go and hear him speak on the making of Wrath of Khan, and he shared a lot of really rare photos that not a lot of people have seen. And it was an absolute pleasure to hear what he had to say, and a lot of what he knew and discovered has made its way online to the lots of trivia sections of the internet. And so I feel like you have to give a lot of credit to John and Maria Jose Tenuto and the love and the passion that they've brought to the fandom because of the franchise, and specifically this movie. So yes, go to Amazon, search Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, the making of the classic film, and check it out, pre-order it, give them some love. You guys will not be disappointed.
No, that looks amazing. All right, so yes, I would decide to be different and give it a 5. No, yeah. How can you not? And I know it almost is a trope at this point of like, well, everyone's favorite Star Trek film is Star Trek 2. It's like it's so much so that some people want to not say it's their favorite film to be contrary, or not say it's a good film. And it's like, no, you can't say that. I'm sorry. Did we watch the same movie? Did we watch the same cut? But yeah, this was a lot of fun to revisit. Like I said, I remember watching it again right after the passing of Demoy, and yeah, it's just, you know, friends in space and going on an adventure, and it really kicked off kind of these in sequence movies that were continuing that story right into from one to the other. We get the little glimpse of Remember and what's to come, leaving that little titty door open for more movies and to not fully remove the character. Because I don't know. I mean, I think it would be hard to do Star Trek without Spock, and to do, or even just Star Trek without the Kirk Spock friendship, which is so paramount and shown in this movie. But yeah, definitely. So if you want to take over the USS Houselights, all you have to do is prefix code 555, and you'll drop our shields, and you'll force us to talk about whatever you want. But next week, we're going to be continuing our discussion here of Nicholas Meyer as we jump forward a couple Roman numerals to Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, next time on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.